Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. So as you are all aware of, we had started with the digestive system. So we shall continue with the system with the next organs, that is liver and the gallbladder. So as you are all aware, we have seen that digestive system, it is basically divided into two types of organs. Okay, that is a tube-like structure, gastrointestinal tract. Okay, so we have covered the organs like mouth, pharynx, esophagus and stomach, and the accessory digestive organs. Again, these are of several types, okay, and several functions. So in the mouth we have seen it comprises of teeth, which helps in breaking down of the food into smaller particles, the tongue which will help in the movement of the food for chewing and pushing it back, so it will help in the swallowing. We have also covered the pancreas in the last lecture, okay, as an accessory digestive organ which produces the pancreatic juice. It was actually not coming into contact with the food doesn't go to the pancreas, but the secretions which are released by the pancreas, that is pancreatic juice it is called as collectively. So it is released in the small intestine and will help in the digestion. So we have seen the composition, it comprises of several types of enzymes which will help in digestion of several types of food. Okay. So in today's lecture we shall move to the remaining two accessory organs, accessory digestive organs, that is liver and the gallbladder. Okay. So the reason why these two are discussed together is that the bile which is produced by the liver, okay, which is the main function of the liver. So bile which is produced by the liver, it is stored by the gallbladder. So it's a temporary storage of the bile, because continuously the bile may not be required, because bile it is helping in the digestion. So it's partly excretory secretion and it is partly an digestive secretion. So the digestive factors may not be required throughout the day. So whenever the bile is not required, it goes to the gallbladder for the storage, temporary storage and concentration. Of course, we will come to that a little later. Okay, to start with the introduction part. Okay, now this picture you all must be familiar with. We have seen these pictures in the last lecture when we had covered this organ, that is pancreas, which is actually a gland. It is an endocrine as well as exocrine gland, as we have seen. Okay, so just superior to this pancreas lies the liver, which is the heaviest gland of the body. Okay, so it weighs round about 1.4 kg in an average adult. Okay, and even if you compare the size, okay, of all the organs of the body, it's just second to the skin. Skin has a very large surface area, right? So comparatively it is just next to the skin when you compare all the organs of the body. Okay, so it is the heaviest and you can say that it is the largest organ of the body also. Okay, so position, where exactly this liver is located in the abdominopelvic cavity. Okay, so it is just inferior to the diaphragm. This one, diaphragm, it is the skeletal muscle which actually divides the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. Okay, so it's a part of actually respiratory muscle. Okay, so as it contracts, it will create changes in the pressure in the thoracic cavity, because of which the inhalation will take place. Okay, so basically it separates the thoracic cavity. Superior to the diaphragm lies the thoracic cavity, wherein the lungs and the heart are placed, and just inferior to this diaphragm lies the liver. So most of the right hypochondriac part, okay, so towards the right upper corner of your abdominopelvic cavity lies the liver. So most of the right upper part, okay, or right hypochondriac region is occupied by the liver. and to certain extent it also occupies the epigastric region of the abdominopelvic cavity. Now the gallbladder, now why it is known so? Because gall means bile. Okay, so it's a bladder meant for temporary storage of the bile. That's why it is known as gallbladder. So it's a pear-shaped sac, as you can see over here. This one is the gallbladder. So it's a pear-shaped organ, right? It's just located in the depression in the posterior surface of the liver. As you can see, it is shown as faint lines. So this indicates that the gallbladder basically lies posterior to the liver. Okay, size, if you can compare, it's just 7 to 10 centimeter long. Length, if you consider, it's just 7 to 10 centimeter. And mainly it hangs from the anterior inferior margin of the liver. This one, as you can see over here, anterior inferior border of the liver. So this is your gallbladder, which is hanging from this particular border. Okay, now coming to the anatomy of the liver. Okay, so liver, it is basically covered by the visceral peritoneum. Okay, and almost entirely it is covered by a layer of dense irregular connective tissue, okay, which is just lying beneath the peritoneum. Okay, so deeper to the peritoneum lies a layer of dense irregular connective tissue. Okay, and mainly this particular organ is divided into two lobes, the right lobe and the left lobe, out of which the right lobe is little bit larger in the size, as we have seen in this picture also. This is the right lobe and this is the left lobe of the liver. Okay, so right lobe, it is slightly larger in size as compared to the left lobe. Okay, so these two lobes, these are separated by a ligament known as falciform ligament, which is a fold of the mesentery, as we have seen under the peritoneum also. Okay, now there are certain anatomists which consider that the liver also comprises of two more lobes, which are known as quadrate lobe and a caudate lobe. Okay, but usually these are considered to be the part of the right lobe, the larger right lobe. Okay, but certain anatomists believe that these two are the additional lobes. Apart from this right and left lobe, there are two more lobes of the liver, is what is considered by certain anatomists. Okay, but basically these are divided into two lobes, right lobe and the left lobe, which is separated by this falciform ligament. This is the one. Okay, so this is the falciform ligament which is running in between these two lobes. So it is separated by this falciform ligament. So this ligament, it extends from the under surface of the diaphragm. So completely it will help in the positioning of the liver, the two lobes of the liver. So it will help the liver to suspend in the abdominal cavity. Then the free border of this falciform ligament, it is known as the ligamentum teres. This is the one, or it is also known as round ligament. This is the one. Okay, now what is this exactly round ligament? It's actually a remnant of the umbilical vein of the fetus. Okay, so the umbilical vein which is present in the fetal life, so which is mainly supplying the blood to the fetus. So after the birth, it is collapsed, and a remnant of this particular umbilical vein remains in the form of a round ligament. This is the one. Okay, so apart from this, these ligaments, that is falciform ligament and the round ligament, there are two more ligaments, that is the right and left coronary ligaments. These are the coronary ligaments. Okay, so this is the left coronary ligament and here is the right coronary ligament. Okay, so these are actually the narrow extensions of the parietal peritoneum which help in suspending the liver from the diaphragm. Okay, so these coronary ligaments will help in suspending the liver just inferior to your diaphragm. So all these ligaments, a falciform ligament, round ligament, the right and the left coronary ligaments, they will help to maintain the position of the liver in the abdominopelvic cavity. Okay. Then coming to the anatomy of the gallbladder. As we have seen that it's a pear-shaped organ, right? And it's helping in the temporary storage of the bile which is produced by the liver. Okay. Now basically it can be divided into three parts. The broad fundus which is located inferiorly. Okay. And you can see that it is extending beyond the inferior border of the liver. Okay. Rest of the part lies posterior to the liver, but just a fundus, a part of terminal part of fundus, it is extending beyond the inferior border of the liver. Okay, so that broad structure is known as fundus, the middle portion is known as body, and the superior portion wherein the cystic duct will start, that portion is known as the neck of the gallbladder. Okay, so this to do with the anatomy of the gallbladder and the liver. Then coming to the histology of the liver. Okay, so histologically there are different aspects which we will see in detail one by one. Okay, so the first one is the hepatocytes. Okay, the actual meaning of this word, it was derived from the two words, that is hepat means liver and cytes means cells. Okay, so hepatocytes are the cells which are present in the liver. So most of the liver is made up of hepatocytes, or it comprises of mainly the hepatocytes, so specialized types of cells which are present throughout the liver. These are known as hepatocytes. So these are the major functional cells of the liver. So a wide variety of functions are carried out by these hepatocytes. Okay, so they are involved in the metabolic function, the secretory functions, and the endocrine functions also. Okay, so these are the hepatocytes. You can see that most of the liver, it is made up of the hepatocytes. Okay, so these are the specialized epithelial cells with 5 to 12 sides. Okay, so the shape of the epithelial cell is also not fixed. Okay, you can't say that these are cuboidal epithelial cells. Okay, so these are diverse. The number of sides may vary from 5 to 12 sides, and it comprises of almost 80% of the volume of the liver. Okay, so most of the liver is made up of these hepatocytes. Now these hepatocytes, these are arranged in a complex three-dimensional pattern of arrangement, and that arrangement is known as hepatic lamina. You can see here, these are the hepatic laminae. These are the ones, hepatic laminae. Okay, these. Now these hepatic laminae, this comprises of actually a single layer of hepatocyte. Okay, it's one cell thick. Okay, and it is bordered on either side. Now on either side of these, you can see that there is only a single layer of hepatocytes, right? Everywhere. Okay, almost everywhere there is a single layer of hepatocytes, and it is bordered on either sides by vascular spaces known as hepatic sinusoids. Okay, so these are, you can't call them exactly the blood vessels. Okay, so these are the types of blood vessels, okay, which are endothelial line. Only a single layer of endothelial cells is present over here. You can see over here, this blue colored ones, these are endothelial cells. So these are specialized type of blood vessels called as sinusoids. Okay, so since these are present in the liver, these are known as hepatic sinusoids. So on either sides of the single layer of hepatocytes rise the sinusoids, hepatic sinusoids. Okay, now in the grooves of these cell membranes of hepatocytes, you can see over here, in the grooves lies the specialized channels wherein the bile which is produced by the liver is secreted, and these specialized spaces okay, or specialized channels or tubules, these are known as canaliculi. Okay, so whatever bile is produced by these hepatocytes, these are secreted into these bile canaliculi. Okay, now what is bile? Bile, it's a yellow, brownish or olive green colored liquid which is produced and secreted by the hepatocytes. So it may serve as both excretory product as well as the digestive secretion. We'll come to that, why it is called as excretory product and why it is called as a digestive secretion. Okay, now coming to the next. So this is to do with the hepatocytes. Now coming to the next structural feature of the liver, that is bile canaliculi. Exact meaning of canaliculi is small canals. Okay, so these are the small ducts which lie in between the hepatocytes, which collect the bile which is produced by the hepatocytes. So hepatocytes will secrete the bile which is produced by them into these bile canaliculi. So these bile canaliculi from several areas, these will collect the bile and ultimately they will unite to form the still larger ducts called as bile ductules. Okay, so bile likewise it is shown only at this particular place. So likewise bile canaliculi are present throughout the liver. So these bile canaliculi will unite and pass on the bile which is produced by these hepatocytes into still larger ducts called as bile ductules. And ultimately from bile ductules the bile will move into these still larger ducts called as bile ducts. So this is the one. So these bile canaliculi will unite to form bile ductules, and bile ductules from several areas will pass on the bile into the bile duct. Okay, so this is the flow pattern of the bile which is produced by the hepatocytes. Okay, so ultimately it will be drained into the bile ducts. Okay, now these bile ducts, these merge together and they form still larger tubules called as right and left hepatic ducts. Okay, so these are the ones. This is the right hepatic duct and this is the left hepatic duct. Okay, so from here the bile ducts from several areas of this lobe, they will unite together ultimately to form one single duct called as right hepatic duct, which is coming out from this right lobe, and the bile ducts from several areas of the left lobe will unite together to form a single duct called as left hepatic duct, which will ultimately come and unite with the right hepatic duct. So both these right and left hepatic duct, they will unite together to form the common hepatic duct. Okay, so from these two, the bile which is produced by the right as well as left lobe, it will come into the common hepatic duct. And common hepatic duct will be joined by the cystic duct. Okay, this we have also seen in the last lecture where we have studied the pancreas, how the secretion takes place. Okay, so the cystic duct will also join the common bile duct, which is originating from the cystic duct is originating from the gallbladder. Okay, so it will unite with the common hepatic duct and it will form the common bile duct. And common bile duct, as it passes further, it will unite with the pancreatic duct and it will form an expansion known as hepatopancreatic ampulla, through which the bile as well as the pancreatic juice will enter into the duodenum. This we have already covered in the earlier lecture. So this is how the bile which is produced by the liver, it is secreted into the small intestine. That is the first part of the small intestine, the duodenum. Okay. And the next structural aspect of the liver is the hepatic sinusoids. Okay, so these are highly permeable blood capillaries. There are types of blood vessels. The blood capillaries, a type of blood capillaries which are highly permeable in nature. Okay, so the gap in between these sinusoids are very large. Usually the blood capillaries, of course the endothelium is placed apart so that they are permeable, but these sinusoids, are the type of blood capillaries which are even more permeable. Okay, so these are arranged along these hepatic laminae, which are comprised of the hepatocytes. So on the either sides of these hepatocytes lies these hepatic sinusoids. So these hepatic sinusoids, these receive the oxygenated blood from this particular blood vessel. You can see this one. This is actually a branch of hepatic artery. Hepatic artery is the artery which is supplying oxygenated blood to the liver. So a branch of hepatic artery, as you can see over here, it is draining into the sinusoids, right? So the hepatocytes will receive the oxygenated blood from this branch of hepatic artery. So it will be passed into the sinusoids and the oxygen will be utilized by the hepatocytes. Whereas it will receive the nutrient-rich deoxygenated blood from a branch of hepatic portal vein. Remember the portal vein? Portal vein, it is the blood vessel which is conveying all the absorbed nutrients from the GI tract to the liver. Okay, so whatever nutrients are absorbed in the GI tract, they will be taken directly to the liver for further processing. So a branch of hepatic portal vein is also draining into the sinusoids. Now this is actually a deoxygenated blood, right? But it is nutrient rich. So whatever nutrients are absorbed into the GI tract, these will be utilized by the liver and it will be processed further by these hepatocytes. Okay, and ultimately all the hepatic sinusoids from several areas, it will converge and it will deliver the blood into a single large vein known as central vein. Okay, so as you can see in this particular figure, these are the hepatocytes. These are the hepatic laminae in which the hepatocytes are arranged in the complex pattern of branch-like structure. In between there are hepatic sinusoids. These are the ones. Okay, so this will receive the oxygenated blood from the hepatic artery. This is the branch of hepatic artery, and deoxygenated nutrient-rich blood from the hepatic portal vein. Okay, so it will be drained into the sinusoids. So as it passes through, hepatocytes will utilize the oxygen and also it will utilize the nutrients, and ultimately the blood will, the deoxygenated blood will go into the central vein. Okay, so from central vein further it will go into the hepatic vein. The blood will move into the hepatic vein. From here it will go to the inferior vena cava. Okay, now as you can see, the flow of the blood and the bile both are in the opposite direction, right? So blood is flowing from this particular side to the left hand side, and as you can see, the bile, it is flowing exactly in the opposite direction, that is from the left to the right hand side. Okay, now apart from this, there are again one more specialized type of cells which are present in the hepatic sinusoids. As you can see over here, these ones, these are the stellate reticuloendothelial cells, or these are also known as Kupffer cells. Okay, these are actually phagocytes. So phagocytes, what is the function? These are fixed phagocytes. Okay, they are not movable. So they are fixed at this particular position. So as the blood is flowing through these sinusoids, so blood will contain all the worn out WBCs or RBCs, even it will contain the bacteria or other foreign material, because this blood which is brought by the hepatic portal vein, it is coming from the GI tract, right? So maybe microbes are present in that, bacteria are present, foreign substances are present. So all these will be phagocytosed by these Kupffer cells. Okay, so they have a protective function. Okay, so these Kupffer cells, they will start phagocytosing the damaged WBCs, RBCs, the bacteria which are present, and the foreign matter. Okay, so it helps in the protective function. Okay, now there is something called portal triad which is present in the liver. Now what is this portal triad exactly? It comprises of a bile duct, a branch of hepatic artery and a branch of hepatic vein. As you can see over here, all these three are located together, right? This is the bile duct into which the bile which is produced by the hepatocytes will be drained ultimately. There is a branch of hepatic artery and there is a branch of hepatic portal vein. So all these three are located together, right? So as you can see over here at this particular corner, all these three are present, right? So this is the portal triad. It comprises of bile duct, a branch of hepatic artery and a branch of hepatic portal vein. These three together are called as the portal triad. Okay. Now these hepatocytes again and the duct system and the sinusoids, these are arranged in a specialized form. Okay, so you can call them as anatomical or functional units of the liver. It's the arrangements of these hepatocytes. There is a specific way in which these hepatocytes, bile duct system and the hepatic sinusoids are arranged into. So there are three different ways which are proposed, okay, which are considered to be the functional unit of the liver. The first one is the hepatic lobule. Now initially this hepatic lobule was considered as the functional unit of liver. Now how or what it comprises of exactly, we have seen this particular structure, right? Okay, wherein at three corners, it's a hexagonal shape, and at three corners there are portal, triad, and centrally located is the central vein. So this particular hexagon shaped arrangement of these hepatocytes, the portal triad and the duct system and the sinusoids, it can be represented in the different way. You can see this is also an hexagon shaped, right? And these three corners contain the portal triad and this is the central vein. So there are three different ways in which this functional unit can be arranged. So for many years this hepatic lobule was considered as the functional unit. Okay, that hexagonal shaped structure, wherein at three corners are located the portal triad and centrally placed is the central vein. Okay. However, this particular model for the functional unit of liver, it's actually well defined in the adult pigs, but as such it is not well defined in the human beings. Okay. So a new type of structural unit was proposed and that is known as portal lobule. Now actually this comprises of the portal triad at the center and it consists of a triangular shaped structure. At the three corners of the triangle lies the three adjacent central veins of the hepatic lobules. This is the hepatic lobule, right? So the three central veins of the three hepatic lobules which are located adjacent to each other, if you join these three, you will get a triangular shaped structure, right? Wherein at the center will lie your portal triad. So this particular triangular structure, the components which are enclosed over here, this comprises of the portal lobule. Okay. Then the third type of arrangement which is now widely utilized to describe the structural and functional unit of liver is the hepatic acinus. Okay. Now what is this hepatic acinus? Hepatic acinus, it comprises of the central vein on the either sides. It's an oval shaped structure as you can see. Okay. Along the short axis of this oval shape, it comprises of the branches of the portal vein, portal artery and the bile duct. Okay. So it's lined by the short axis of this particular oval shape. And the long axis is comprises of two curved lines which are joining the central vein of the two adjacent hepatic lobules. So this oval shaped structure is called as hepatic acinus. Again it is further divided into different zones. Okay, so several zones are present over here. Okay, so accordingly it may be further classified as to how exactly the blood supply is taking place, what is the exposure which is taking place. Okay, but this hepatic SNS, it is the most acceptable model to describe the structural and functional unit of the liver. Okay, so this is to do with the histology of the liver. Then coming to the blood supply of the liver, of course we have already covered this. Okay, so this particular part summarizes the blood supply of the liver. Okay, now there are two sources of blood supply as we have seen. Oxygenated blood is received from this hepatic artery, and the nutrient rich deoxygenated blood, it is received from this hepatic portal vein, okay, which comes from the GIT. This is supplied by the heart, oxygenated blood. So both these will move to the liver sinusoids. Okay, so further it will be drained into liver sinusoids. So oxygen will be utilized by the hepatocytes, the nutrients will be utilized, whatever toxic substances are produced, these will be released into the sinusoids. So eventually whatever oxygenated blood is coming from the hepatic artery, that will also get converted into deoxygenated blood. Okay, so whatever is formed by the hepatocytes, it is released into the blood which is present in the liver sinusoids. Okay, so ultimately the liver sinusoids will unite together and drain the blood into the central vein, and several central veins will ultimately drain the blood into the hepatic vein, which will ultimately drain into the inferior vena cava, which will drain the blood back to the right atrium of the heart. Okay. Then coming to the histology of the gallbladder. Okay. The mucosa of the gallbladder, it comprises of the simple columnar epithelial cells. Now these simple columnar epithelial cells, these are arranged in the form of rugae. Remember, rugae, these are the folds which are present in the mucosa of the stomach. Okay, why these are present? Because the stomach is a distensible part, right? It's the most distensible part. Why it is so? To accommodate more and more food, right? Because the food is swallowed at a very fast rate as compared to the rate at which it is digested. Okay, so similar type of rugae are also present in the gallbladder. Now, what is the function of gallbladder? Is to store the bile, right? So this particular gallbladder is also distensible. So the mucosa is present in the form of folds called as rugae. So when more and more bile comes to the gallbladder, it will distend. Okay. Then the next layer actually is the submucosa, but the gallbladder wall does not contain any submucosa layer. Directly it will have a middle muscular layer which will comprise of the smooth muscles. So whenever these smooth muscles contract, it will eject the bile which is stored in the gallbladder into the cystic duct. Okay. Then the outermost layer comprises of the visceral peritoneum, okay, which will be comprising of the connective tissue and the epithelial layer, squamous epithelial layer. Okay. Then coming to the functions of the gallbladder is mainly to store and concentrate the bile. Okay, so whatever bile is synthesized by the liver, it may temporarily be stored in the gallbladder where it is also concentrated up to 10-fold. So there will be lot of absorptive processes which are taking place. So in the process of concentration of the bile, water and many of the ions are absorbed by the gallbladder mucosa. Okay. This is to do with the histology of the gallbladder. Then coming to the functions of the liver and gallbladder. Okay. Now main function of the liver is to produce the bile. So the hepatocytes, they secrete 800 to 1000 ml of the bile each day. Okay, so bile, as we have seen, it's a yellow, brownish or olive green color liquid which has a pH of 7.6 to 8.6. Okay, so it's having an alkaline pH which comprises mainly of the water, bile salts, cholesterol, phospholipid called as lecithin, then bile pigments, and several ions are present in this bile. and the main type of bile pigment is the bilirubin. Okay, now from where this bilirubin is derived? It is derived from the degradation of the aged RBCs. Okay, so the worn out RBCs which are phagocytosed, okay, so these are broken down, and ultimately it is liberating the iron, globin and the bilirubin, which is the waste product of the metabolism of the worn out RBCs. So this bilirubin, it is actually a metabolic product of the heme. Okay. Now this iron and globin, these are recycled, but bilirubin, it is secreted into the bile. So it's an excretory product. Okay, it's a waste product. So ultimately this bilirubin which is released into the intestine, it will be broken down into stercobilin. So actually the feces which are formed, which are the solid waste which are formed in the large intestine, they obtain their brown color because of the presence of the stercobilin, which is the metabolic product of the bilirubin. And bilirubin, it is derived from the breakdown of the worn out RBCs. Okay. Then bile, as we have seen that it is an excretory product as well as it is a partially digestive secretion. Now why it is so is because the bile salts, either it may be in the form of sodium salt or potassium salts of the bile acids. The main type of bile acids are chenodeoxycholic acid and cholic acid. So these bile salts, the sodium or potassium salts of these bile acids, they play a very important role in emulsification and breakdown of larger lipid globules. So lipid digestion, it is mediated by the bile salts which is secreted in the bile. So they will help in breakdown of these larger lipid globules into smaller lipid globules. Now smaller lipid globules will have a large surface area, right? So it will help in action of the pancreatic lipase, which is a lipid digesting enzyme. Remember the pancreatic lipase, which is secreted by the pancreas in the pancreatic juice. So it will act upon the lipids. Now when lipids are present in the form of large globules, there will be small surface area, right? So it will be difficult for digestion of these lipids by the pancreatic lipase. So it is aided by the bile salts. It helps in breaking down larger globules into smaller lipid globules which can be easily digested by the pancreatic lipase. Also these bile salts will help in absorption of the lipids also after their digestion. Okay. Now this bile which is produced by the hepatocytes, this is continuously being produced and secreted. Okay. But as and when required, it is released. That is, whenever the food comes to the small intestine, as the digestion and absorption continues, there will be more and more bile which will be released from the liver. Now otherwise, when you are not having meals, when you are not having food, there is no food which is present in the small intestine. This bile which is produced by the liver, it flows into the gallbladder for storage and concentration. Now why it happens? Because the sphincter of hepatopancreatic ampulla, that is sphincter of Oddi, it closes off. So the bile cannot flow through. It will not be able to enter the duodenum. So as a result of this, it is flowing towards the gallbladder and it is stored over there and concentrated, and as and when required, the gallbladder will contract and it will release the bile into the small intestine. Okay, so these are the main functions of the liver and the gallbladder. Now apart from this, there are several vital functions which are performed by the liver. Okay, so we'll see all these functions in detail one by one. So the first one is the carbohydrate metabolism. Okay, so continuous monitoring of the blood glucose level is going on. Now whenever there is any alteration in the blood glucose level, either the glucose will be released or it will be stored accordingly by the liver. Now when the blood glucose levels are low, below normal, what will happen? The glycogen, which is the stored form of glucose. Glycogen, it comprises of single molecules of glucose, right, which are joined together. It forms glycogen. Okay. So this glycogen is broken down and glucose is released in the bloodstream. So glucose which was low, it will come back to normal. Apart from that, liver can also synthesize the glucose from amino acids or even the lactic acid. Okay. Also, it can convert other sugars like fructose and galactose into glucose also. Okay. So glucose synthesis will also be taking place in the liver. Okay. Now, supposing if the blood glucose level is high, what will happen? There will be more and more glucose which is present in your blood. So that is also not good, right? So homeostasis will come into picture, and whatever excess glucose is present in the blood, which will be generally occurring after you eat a meal, so it gets converted into glycogen. So glucose is stored in the form of glycogen, also in the form of triglycerides. So it will store the glucose whenever it is in excess, and whenever the blood glucose level is low, this stored glycogen will be broken down to release the glucose. So carbohydrate metabolism is one of the important function. Next one is the lipid metabolism. So hepatocytes, they store triglycerides. The breakdown of the fatty acids to generate the ATP is also taking place in the liver. The synthesis of lipoproteins. Lipoproteins are the ones which are important in transportation of the fatty acids and triglycerides and cholesterol. These are made up of varying content of triglyceride, cholesterol and the fatty acid. There are several types of lipoproteins. VLDL, LDL, HDL, you all must have heard of. So the synthesis of these takes place in the liver, and the synthesis of cholesterol also takes place in the liver. Okay. And also the bile salts which are produced by the liver, that is produced from this cholesterol. It utilizes cholesterol to make the bile salts which are secreted in the bile. Then the next function is protein metabolism. Hepatocytes, they can deaminate the amino acids, okay, so that these amino acids can be utilized in the ATP production, or they can be converted to carbohydrates or fats as and when it is required. Okay. So also the ammonia, the toxic ammonia which is produced, it gets converted into less toxic urea, which is ultimately excreted in the urine. Also several types of protein synthesis also takes place in the liver by the hepatocytes. They can synthesize the plasma proteins, globulins, then albumin. So several types of plasma proteins like alpha and beta globulins, albumin, prothrombin, fibrinogen, okay, clotting factors, etc. Okay, so these are produced by the liver or synthesized by the liver. And the next function is processing of drugs and the hormones. Okay, so several drugs which are consumed for treatment or diagnosis, maybe, or the mitigation of certain disease or disorder, these gets metabolized in the liver. So it mainly gets detoxified, that is converted into a less toxic substance which can be easily excreted out of the body. Even certain hormones are also processed by the liver. Okay. So several drugs, there are certain drugs which may be excreted into the bile like penicillin, erythromycin and sulfonamides. Okay. Thyroid hormone, it gets altered, chemically altered in the liver. Also certain steroid hormones such as estrogen and aldosterone, these are also processed by the liver. Then the next function of liver is excretion of the bilirubin. So as I have told you earlier, bilirubin, it is derived from heme of the aged RBCs, RBCs which are destroyed. Okay. The globin part, okay, it is recycled. Okay. Iron is also recycled, but the heme, it gets converted into the bilirubin which is absorbed by the liver, okay, and it is secreted into the bile. Further, bilirubin will be metabolized into stercobilin and it is ultimately excreted in the feces. So it also has a excretory function, the liver. Next function is synthesis of bile salts. Okay. So bile salts, that is sodium and potassium salts of bile acid, chenodeoxycholic acid and cholic acid. So bile salts, they help in the emulsification and digestion and absorption of the lipids. Okay, so bile salts are synthesized by the liver. Then one more important function of liver is storage. As we have seen under carbohydrate metabolism, the excess of glucose, it gets stored into the liver in the form of glycogen, right? Apart from this, even there are several types of vitamins which are stored in the liver, like vitamin A, B12, D, E, K, all these are stored in the liver. Even the minerals like iron and copper are also stored in the liver, and they are released as and when they are required by the body. And another important function of liver is phagocytosis. So remember the fixed phagocytes which are present in the hepatic sinusoids, that is stellate reticuloendothelial cells or Kupffer cells. So these will phagocytose the aged RBCs, WBCs, certain bacteria, foreign substances. So they will have a protective function. Then one more important function of liver is the activation of vitamin D. Okay, so apart from liver, the skin and kidney, they also participate in synthesizing the active form of vitamin D. Okay, so these are the important functions of the liver. Apart from the synthesis and secretion of the bile, these are some of the important functions which are carried out by the liver. Okay, so this is the reference. Thank you for watching.